could play a princess if I wanted to.
You could play a princess now. I think
sure,
people
I could
would
try.
Yeah, people would warm to that. Hello, Viggo. It's great to see you. You're a jack of all trades, well, Viggo of all trades, director, writer, actor, composer. What was the thing that made you go, yeah, this is the project I want to write. This is the project I want to see through.
Well, I like the story. I started out writing a story about a independent, strong-willed woman, and placed her on the North American frontier in the middle of the 19th century, because I thought it would be more challenging for her, you know, to be in a place, a society that's more or less lawless and dominated by a few powerful, unscrupulous men who are not averse to using violence to achieve their goals, you know. I thought that would create more obstacles for her, and I like Westerns. Once I realized that, I thought, okay, so we're going to make a Western. Let's make the most of it in terms of all the research, making sure that the look of things, the clothing, the places we see, and the language we hear, that it's all historically correct, the weapons, everything. And also a certain diversity that you don't always see in Westerns, you know, racially, ethnically, linguistically. But we wanted to make a classic Western, you know, that it looked and felt like those movies I grew up watching.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't think so much of how the camera's seeing the things, you just see these landscapes and you see the people in them, and almost feel like what it would have been like to be there, you know. Yeah. Just like as a kid, when I would watch those movies, I'd ask myself, would I be as brave as, let's say, Vivienne in this case? Would I commit errors like Olsen does? Would I admit to them? I don't know. Would I be a coward? What would happen? But knowing that there were some things that were different, that you stay with her always.
I love that.
Even when he goes off to war, you know, that's unusual.
For me, that is what stood out, how, you know, you'd usually follow Helga to the Civil War, but we stayed with Vivienne and we saw her story and waited with her. That's really stood out to me.
No sense being all alone on a night like this.
No different than any other. I am fine, Mr. Jeffries.
No, you most certainly are.
The score, which I was listening to and thinking, this is great, I need to see who did this when the credits rolled, and I see your name. So I'm intrigued to just know the process of when you decided that you were going to score this, if you kind of borrowed from stuff you'd already composed.
Yeah, in this case, no, I didn't. It was all new for this movie. I mean, I've written some other scripts, which I hope to be able to direct someday, if I can find the money. If somebody's willing to take a chance on it. But in this case, I had a clear idea of what I wanted it to sound like, and had some ideas of how to achieve it. And I was lucky to work with Cameron Stone, great cellist, and Scarlett Rivera, amazing violinist, and my friend Travis Dickerson, with whom I've recorded lots of music over the years. And we recorded all this in his studio well before the shoot, many, many months before. And that was part of the writing process, really, in the sense that I had the script, and I sat down at the piano, and I started working out melodies, themes, deciding what scenes, what sequences would need them. And it worked out well, because I was able to present that, play it for people on the team, you know.
It's a great score, and I'm intrigued to just hear about you as a director, who you've drawn upon, whether you've had experience with the directors. I noticed, and thanks to, there's Agnes Varda and Peter Bogdanovich, and of course Peter Jackson. Just, yeah, if you could speak to me to some of your inspirations and why those directors are in your thanks.
The best of them, if you're open to taking on board what other people think about what's happening in the moment, it's not a threat to me. It just means you're involved. I think any shoot, bonds are formed, sometimes in terrible shoots, you know.
Yeah.
Because in a different way, yeah, because of the, you know, the adversity. But that tends to be little groups that don't connect with each other. But when it's everybody pulling in the same direction, then it's a more kind of universal, positive feeling, you know, that you have, and you make a better movie. I think it's more effective. I mean, there are people who direct in a more, let's say, authoritarian way, in which they're inflexible, and maybe they even feel threatened by someone making a suggestion. Yeah. like, oh, I'm in charge, and I want everybody to understand that all the ideas are mine, all the good ideas. That's really just insecurity, I think. I think if you realize, there's no threat to your authority, they're just trying to improve what you're doing. It's a team sport, really. So.
You've mentioned in the past few weeks how you carried Aragorn's sword, and you asked Peter Jackson for, if you could do that for permission. But did you carry anything that we couldn't see from your experiences of working with Peter Jackson over the years? Anything that you've kind of...
just his problem-solving skills, his way of working with his team, much larger team than our movie, obviously, on Lord of the Rings.
So just in line of like a film from your back catalogue that you think deserve more love, do you have one in mind?
Like to have been seen more?
Yeah.
I would say Far From Men, which in French was called Loin des Hommes, and it's really well made. It's directed by David Olhoffen, a writer-director, a French one, and he's really talented. It takes place in Algeria at 1954, at the start of the War for Independence there. And where eventually by 1962, the Algerians kicked the French out. Long, horrible war. And I play a school teacher up in the mountains, and I'm from the same area that Reda's character is. He's an Arab farmer, and I'm teaching French in the old sort of school system there. At the outbreak of the war, things become untenable for me, and it's a story about these two men. Beautiful, beautiful movie with a great soundtrack by Nick Cave and Warren Ellis. Landscapes are incredible, photography is really, really beautiful. It's a very satisfying, very emotional story.
Espagnol. Pour les Français, on était des Arabes. Et maintenant, pour les Arabes, on est des Français.
So it won a bunch of awards at Venice, I think, and then I guess the distribution didn't fall in place.
Right, yeah, and we had it was in competition at the Venice Film Festival, that's true. And we had a long standing ovation. It was really, really exciting. So it was disappointing when movies don't. I mean, maybe it'll achieve a certain cult status.
I think it's wonderful, and I think I couldn't help but when I watched it, how there are parallels. I mean, there are parallels to what was happening in the world then, but humanitarian crisis, oppressive forces forcing people out of where they live. It's very timely,
That's true. That's true, and that sort of mistrust of the other. But we made it at the end of 2012, I think is when we were shooting. But it was like just the war in Iraq, and since 9/11, the mistrust of the Muslim world, of Arabs, a certain racial profiling, just the mistrust between different peoples. It's a complex story and deals with that in a very honest and moving way, I think.
You play roles like that very well. I mean, you play other roles also that aren't as heroic. But do you find yourself? Do you view yourself as a good heroic actor? Is that how you kind of?
I haven't thought about it.
No.
I mean, I think I'm a conscientious actor in the sense that I realize that if I'm going to play a role, then it's like make the most of it. What happened before page one, really build up who this person is, to make them as real as you can, give them as many layers, in other words, as much humanity as possible, and don't shy away from the sort of uncomfortable things that maybe characters do sometimes. You just have to be honest about it. But I don't think of myself as a type of actor. I just think I'm an actor.
Playing, obviously, Lord of the Rings is back in. I mean, it's never really out of the spotlight, but it's back in the spotlight. What with the new Gollum franchise being launched by Andy Serkis and Peter Jackson. In that film, I think there's a lot of speculation about when that's going to be set, and there's a lot of theories that maybe it will feature a younger version of Aragorn as it's set back in a day. Do you have any advice to if that ever did come about and someone else was cast in the role? Firstly, who do you think would make a good younger Aragorn? And secondly, what advice would you give?
I have no idea who would make a good one. I mean, it wouldn't be different than any other role. Know your lines and show up on time.
Yeah.
It's the most important.
Be a nice person.
Yeah. No, and enjoy what you're doing if you can. And remember, it is play, it is make-believe, and it's serious. You have a schedule, and you're supposed to, as I say, know your lines and put in your day's work. But remember to play. Remember to enjoy it if you can.
Enjoy the experience.
Because it's in playfulness that inventiveness happens, you know, that surprises happen, and that you're open to surprises that come to you from others rather than resistant or just locked into a certain tunnel vision in terms of what you want to do. Enjoy it.
And would you, if there was ever, I know they're mooting like a few future franchises based in the Lord of the Rings world, would you return as Aragorn in some form, lead your own franchise if asked?
If it seemed right and it was faithful to what Tolkien wrote, sure, why not? I mean, I had a good experience learning about that world. It was really fun.
And just like lastly, I just want to ask you about, just out of my interest, Crimes of the Future, a film which I've revisited a few times because it's just my view and it changed every time I watch it, like how I sit with it. But your performance in that film is quite something. Is it a thrill seeing that on screen, or is there moments where you're like, whoa, I wish I did it a bit different? Like, what, as an actor, what's
There's
the
always
experience?
something that you could have done better. Sometimes it's out of your hands, you know, if you're not editing the movie, directing it. They might choose a take or an angle or a line reading that's, you wonder why, but it fits into their idea of how the story should be put together, and that's all there is to it. Yeah. You know, when you're an actor, you're giving them a certain hue of a certain color, and then they use that to complete the painting, you know, and that's it. You walk away. I mean, some actors, and I understand this, they're unwilling to watch themselves in anything they do because it just freaks them out. All you can see is what you did wrong or what you didn't, the opportunities you missed along the way. And I can see those things, but I can live with them and use them as a learning experience for the next time. You know, and every character is different. I like challenges. I mean, I think when we're kids, we don't really think about it much, you know. I remember fantasizing that I was an explorer, or that I was, you know, I don't know, Stanley Livingston, or a cowboy, or even a Lakota warrior. You know, you don't limit yourself as a kid. There isn't a, you know, political correctness police in your head. As a child, you're free, and you do anything you want. I could play a princess if I wanted to, you know, and
you could play a princess now. I think
sure,
people
I could
would
try.
Yeah, people would warm to that. Were there any kind of roles, any back in the 90s, any screen tests where, for like big roles that you just the roles that got away?
That I would have liked to play?
Yeah. Or that you were kind of up for the running?
I did get the role. It was going to be a smaller budget movie. It was Oliver Stone's Platoon. I did audition on, you know, videotape, I guess. And I got the role that eventually Willem Dafoe ended up playing. And I assumed I had that role. I kept saying, when are we shooting? And, you know, I didn't know much about the business. He goes, well, we're still looking. We have to raise the rest of the money. But you know, and nobody told me it wasn't happening. And so I spent like a year reading every possible thing about Vietnam.
Oh, God.
I even thought,
all the research.
could I like join the army just for a short while? No, it doesn't work that way. You know, but I got as much experience as I could about it, and I really filled notebooks. I had this character. I was ready, you know. Yeah. And then one day I read in the newspaper, Oliver Stone's making this movie with Tom Berenger. Oh, Tom Berenger, that's the one who was playing it. And Willem Dafoe, and I'm like, playing, you know.
You're right.
And so I called Oliver Stone. And I said, what's going on? I thought, he goes, well, you know, it's a bigger budget now, and, you know, Willem Dafoe was just in, I don't know what, To Live and Die in L.A. or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I don't know how he explained it, but he was basically saying, no, it's just not going to happen.
So brutal.
You. And I said, oh, because I thought, you know, I'm really ready. Could I do another audition just to prove that I'm, because I know even more now than I did when I got the part.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to happen. But I wouldn't have done the other things I've done if that had happened, and if I'd had that sort of initial success. Maybe I would have got tired of the whole thing already and quit. I don't know.
It's all part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.